See, he just coughed it all up. Good boy. Give me that. Good boy. Yeah. Good boy.
Let me be very clear before we even get into this. This is not one of those stories where people are just being messy for clicks. This isn't just internet drama. And this definitely isn't a case of people doing too much in the comments. Because once you really sit with what you're hearing, once you actually listen to the audio instead of skimming past it, this situation stops feeling like entertainment and starts feeling deeply uncomfortable. For months now, people have been asking the same quiet question in louder and louder ways. What is actually going on with Chrisean Jr.? And for the longest time, that question never got answered. It got dodged, it got prayed over, it got shouted down, it got wrapped in anger and defensiveness and accusations of hate. Until recently, because somewhere in the middle of all the chaos, the lives, the backlash, the rumors, the denial, Chrisean Rock finally said something that shifted the entire conversation. Not in a headline, not in a viral clip meant to trend, but in a moment that felt raw, unguarded, and honestly, tired. She admitted that her son has medical issues, and once that door opened, everything that came before it suddenly looked very different. So today, we're going to walk through this entire situation from the beginning, not in a rushed, sensational way, but step by step, with context, with nuance, and with the full picture in mind. Because this story is bigger than a clip, and once you hear it all laid out, you'll understand why so many people are worried. This whole situation really reignited with what looked like just another Instagram live. Chrisean was doing what she always does, talking to chat, half focused, half distracted, scrolling, responding, vibing. Nothing about the moment felt like it was supposed to become a headline. But in the background of that live, something stood out. At first, it was subtle, a cough. Then it became rhythmic. Then it became wet, heavy, almost labored. You could hear it even when she wasn't addressing it. And people in the comments noticed immediately, not in a malicious way, not in a gotcha way, but in a genuinely concerned way. People started typing things like, "That doesn't sound normal," and "check on the baby," and "that breathing sounds bad." And instead of pausing the live, instead of picking him up and shifting her attention fully, Chrisean responded with frustration. She said it was just a little sickness. She said people were trying to diagnose her child. She said it was a fake cough. And that moment right there is where everything changed. Because when you hear something that sounds wrong and the explanation doesn't match what you're hearing, instinct kicks in. People stop debating opinions and start trusting their gut. And the gut reaction across the internet was the same. This doesn't feel right. Once those clips started circulating, the conversation exploded far beyond her audience. Nurses, parents, emergency responders, doctors, not diagnosing, not claiming certainty, but expressing concern. Saying things like, "If this were my child, I wouldn't wait." Saying things like, "This isn't something you ignore." Saying things like, "That breathing alone would send me straight to the ER." And here's the thing that made this worse. This wasn't happening in a vacuum. Because people had already been quietly noticing other things for a long time. Junior is almost 3 years old, and yet he's rarely seen walking freely. He's almost always in a stroller, a car seat, or being carried. There's very little footage of him moving around independently. At first, fans brushed it off. Every child develops differently, and honestly, that's true. But then something happened that made people look twice. When Blueface got out and posted a clip of Junior standing on his own, smiling, looking proud of himself, the internet immediately reacted. Not because the moment wasn't sweet, but because it raised questions. People started saying things like, "Why don't we ever see this with Chrisean?" Others pointed out how quickly Junior seemed to progress in just a short amount of time. And whether fair or not, a narrative began forming. That maybe the issue wasn't ability, but environment. That maybe Junior hadn't been given enough space, consistency, or opportunity to develop. And that narrative picked up speed fast. Chrisean eventually responded, saying she had been working with Junior behind the scenes, getting him help, and that people didn't see everything. And for a moment, that explanation worked. The pressure eased up. The criticism slowed down. People wanted to believe her, especially when she started posting gym content, talking about getting her life together, taking things more seriously, and recentering herself. It looked like growth, but then the coughing clip happened. And all of that progress, real or perceived, disappeared overnight. Because now, this wasn't about long-term development, it was about immediate health. What made the situation even more alarming was the way Chrisean explained the symptoms. She mentioned medicine. She referenced flu shots. She implied that the wheezing and coughing were normal reactions. And this is where things got dangerous. Because medical misinformation, even when unintentional, spreads fast. And And when it comes from someone with a platform, especially involving a child, people react strongly. Multiple medical professionals came forward, saying that severe wheezing and labored breathing are not normal reactions to medication or vaccines in the way she described. Again, not diagnosing, but warning. And instead of the situation calming down, it escalated. Because instead of going straight to the hospital, Chrisean went to church. Now, this is where the conversation becomes complicated. Faith itself is not the issue. Plenty of people rely on prayer alongside medical care. But when prayer appears to replace medical care instead of complement it, people start to panic. And when footage surfaced of Jr. being laid on an altar for spiritual healing shortly after the live went viral, that's when concern turned into alarm. Because it looked like medical intervention was being delayed in favor of spiritual solutions. And that's when rumors began flooding in. Undiagnosed conditions, leaked medical records, long-term complications, worst-case outcomes, most of it unverified, some of it outright dangerous to repeat. But the internet doesn't slow down once momentum builds. Then, in the middle of all this noise, something unexpected happened. Chrisean finally stopped fighting the narrative. Not publicly, not dramatically, but quietly. In a conversation that wasn't even centered on Jr., she admitted something she had never said out loud before, that her son has medical issues. Not might, not people are saying, not haters think, has. And the shift in her tone was immediate. No yelling, no defensiveness, no anger, just exhaustion. She didn't list diagnoses. She didn't confirm rumors. She didn't deny them either. She simply acknowledged the truth that people had been sensing for months. That something isn't normal, that this isn't just a cold, that this isn't just internet drama, that this isn't just people hating. And for the first time, people saw Chrisean not as a headline, but as a young mother who looks overwhelmed, scared, and unprepared for the reality she's facing. And this is where the story becomes uncomfortable, because two things can exist at the same time. Chrisean can love her son deeply, and she can still be failing him. She can be trying and still making choices that put him at risk. She can be overwhelmed and still responsible. And the internet struggles with that kind of complexity. It wants heroes and villains, good moms and bad moms, clear lines. But real life doesn't work like that, especially when you consider Chrisean's circumstances. She became famous extremely fast. She was constantly traveling. Her relationship with Chrisean Rock and Blueface was chaotic and public. She never had time to stabilize before becoming a mother. No routine, no structure, no consistency. That environment is hard enough for a healthy child. Add medical needs into the mix, it becomes overwhelming very quickly. And that's the core issue here. Not whether Chrisean is evil, not whether she deserves cancellation, but whether she is equipped to handle this situation alone. And right now, that answer feels uncertain. The reason this story refuses to die down isn't because people want her downfall. It's because people are scared. Scared that warning signs are being ignored. Scared that medical care is being delayed. Scared that by the time everyone agrees something is wrong, irreversible damage may already be done. And what makes it even heavier is the documentation. Every live, every clip, every statement, it's all there. Which means if something goes wrong, there will be no pretending nobody saw it coming. And that's why people keep pushing. Not because they hate her, but because silence feels dangerous. So where does this leave us? Chrisean has acknowledged for the first time that her son has medical issues. Not fully explained, not fully addressed, but acknowledged. And that alone changes the conversation. Because now, the next chapter isn't about denial, it's about action, doctors, consistency, therapy, structure. Not for the internet, not for damage control, not for optics, but for a little boy who didn't choose this life. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about headlines. It's about whether Chrisean Jr. gets the care, stability, and support he needs to grow. And that's something everyone, no matter whose side they're on, should want. Now I want to hear from you. Do you think Chrisean is finally being honest? Do you think she's overwhelmed or avoiding responsibility? And most importantly, do you think this situation can still be turned around? Let me know in the comments. And if you want to understand how this ties into the ongoing drama with Blueface and his family, click the next video on screen because this story is far from finished. Anyway, this concludes today's video. Be sure to subscribe to LoafTube for future celebrity videos and turn on that post notification bell so you don't miss out on any future uploads. Until then, see you in the next one.